time to begin. So we are in chapter 2 of the book of Kings 2. And this, I must say, is a very interesting and very well-known chapter, being that it's when Eliyahu was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. And the Gemara talks about this chapter. There's laws that we learn from this chapter about a person tearing their clothes when their Rebbe passes away, when their master, their leader, their teacher, their main teacher passes away. That's one of the laws we learn over here. There's a lot of course, discussion about many of the events that transpire in this chapter. One of the big stories in this chapter is where Elisha asks from Eliyahu. He says, "V'yehi na pishnayim beruchacha Eloi." Let there be double. He asks, "May twice as much as your spirit be mine," which is quite a request. I want to be double as great as you. And of course the question is, how can Elisha give him what he doesn't have? How can Eliyahu give Elisha something that he doesn't have himself? He's giving him more than he has. Of course, that's one of the questions. In fact, that's what Eliyahu answers. He says, "You've made a difficult request. Like, how is it possible? How am I supposed to give you more than I have?" Anyway, let's go through this chapter inside. I know we started it. So we're not exactly sure what verse we're up to. Let's just start from the beginning, outside at least a few of the points here. So the first thing that we see going on in this chapter, again, we're in chapter 2, is that Eliyahu is traveling. Hashem has told him to go here and go there. It seems like he's got a mission and where he's heading. And he brings Elisha, he's with Elisha, and he went with him from Gilgal. And at that point, Eliyahu tells Elisha, "Okay, now you stay here. I got to finish. I have a mission. I've got to go a little further and go around." And where else does he? And he's going to be, we see afterwards, he goes to Beisel, and he goes to Yericho, and he goes to the Yarden, and he goes Aver Hayarden. He goes over the Jordan. And ultimately, Elisha refuses to stay. He goes with him to all these places. But in each place, Eliyahu wants him to just stop there, and he says, "No, I'm going with you." So he comes with Eliyahu. Elisha comes with Eliyahu. He swears to him, "I swear that by your life, as Hashem lives, and by your life, I shall not leave you." Then he goes to Beisel, and then you have the same story. This story also repeats itself, where the prophets come to tell Elisha about Hashem taking Eliyahu today. "Did you know that Hashem is taking Eliyahu?" And he says, "I know, and be quiet." Hechashu. I know, I do know, and let's don't say anything. And the simple understanding is that Eliyahu doesn't want this to be public knowledge. At least the Metzudas David says this. He saw in Elijah that he doesn't want to reveal this because of his humility. So Eliyahu doesn't want to reveal this, that he's going to be, moving forward and graduating, so to speak, going to heaven. So he's leaving it at that. Let's not, don't talk about this in public. Don't reveal this. So, and then it repeats itself, that same story. So he's in Beisel, and the students there tell this to Elisha. And then he goes to Yericho, And the prophets' disciples, right? The B'nai Hanavim, however you learn, if it means that they are on the level of Eliyahu or they're just students. There seems to be a machlokes, an argument in commentaries, what the B'nai Hanavim in this scenario refers to, if they are on a high level or they're more like students. But however you learn, either way, these B'nai Hanavim, they do the same thing, and they tell Elisha, did you know that today Hashem is going to take Eliyahu away? And he says, I know, Hechashu, be quiet. So it seems that he's, the story is repeating itself, and Eliyahu is taking him to these different places. So there is one of the commentaries mentions an interesting thing, that Eliyahu, number one, he goes to the place called Gilgal. And Gilgal is where this was the first location where the Jewish people encamped when they came to Eretz Yisrael. And they took the stones, the big stones from the Yarden, and they erected them there, and they put the Mishkan there, and Shmuel had gotten the people together over there in Gilgal to accept when Shaul was becoming king. So there were a number of things that happened in Gilgal, and especially this was considered a location where they sort of had an acceptance. The bris, the treaty of Hashem, was considered in Gilgal, so it's the place of Torah, and Eliyahu was giving him the koyach of Torah, and he says, I'm not. Elisha says, it's not enough. I don't feel capable. So he goes with him to Beisel, which is the place of prophecy, because that's where Yaakov Avinu had his prophecy in Beisel when he fell asleep there, and he had that dream of Ein Zeki and Beisel Ikim Sha'ar Shemayim. This is the gate of heaven, and he had this revelation in Beisel, and so Beisel is a place of nevuah, of prophecy. So he gave him the koyach of nevuah, of prophecy. And Eliyahu said, okay, so now it's enough. Elisha said, no, I'm still not, I don't feel capable enough. So then he went with him further, and he goes to Yericha. Yericha is a place of miracles, because Yericha is a place where they went around the city, the wall of the city, and all of a sudden the whole wall fell under, and they conquered the city. So Yericho was a place where the element of Nisim are revealed, and so he gave him the koyach of miracles, and even then Eliyahu tells Elisha, okay, so it's enough, and Hashem sent me to the Yarden, and Elisha says, I swear by Hashem, as Hashem lives, and by your life, I shall not leave you. And so they both went. And then the disciples went. Again, these are the B'nai Hanavim, 50 of the B'nai Hanavim. And they went, Vayamdu Meneged Merochek, that's in verse 7. They stood from afar, and this was, at least according to one way of understanding it, they remained at a distance because Elisha was obviously on a higher level, that he was eligible to go with his master. They stayed. They were at a distance. According to the opinion that these B'nai Hanavim were on a very high level, what we see here is that even someone who's on a high level, there seems to be a big benefit for someone who's a student. And similar to Yeshua, who received from Moshe Rabbeinu, Elisha is the recipient, is the student who receives, who is a receptacle from Eliyahu, and therefore the Gemara says that that Gadol Shimusha, greater is the one who serves more than the scholarliness. That maybe the others were great people, the B'nai Hanavim, but Elisha had a element of uniqueness, a extra quality over them, even if they were greater than him. And the same thing would be Yehoshua. That the fact that they were they serviced their Rebbe, so they had a advantage over the other great scholars. And what we see is Gadol Shimusha Yoiser Milimud, the great is serving a great person, a tzaddik, a navi, than learning, than just learning their Torah. And so so the story over here is that Eliyahu is traveling with his student Elisha, and he's going over the Jordan. And seemingly, where he's going is the place where Moshe Rabbeinu is buried, or he's heading in that, similar to Moshe Rabbeinu, and or the Yarden is a place where a great miracle happened when the river split. So therefore, this is another element of miracles where Eliyahu is traveling. He's taking him to very historic places, and but seemingly there's an element here, and it's brought in the Radak, that that he's bringing him to a place where Moshe Rabbeinu, this was Moshe Rabbeinu's location, and passed away on the Avar Hayarden, on the other side of the Jordan. So this is where he's going with him. Now, the next story here is that how does he get there? How does he get over the Jordan? And this is in verse 8. So Eliyahu, he took his mantle and folded it, or he rolled it up, it seems like, to use in order to strike the water. So the term is, he did some type of the Hebrew term is kricha. Kricha generally means like sandwiched it or rolled it up, so it made it like easy to use as a means to hit the water. And he hit the water, and the water split. And the Hebrew word for this folding it or rolling it up is vayigloim. All the commentaries try to translate vayigloim, that it's basically refers to this, the using it as a means to hit the water. Anyway, the water split, hena vahena, this way and that way, and it split apart, and they both walked on dry land. So we have a great miracle here in verse 8 about the water splitting, and it's brought down in one of the commentaries brings down that how wide did it split? This was a sign that Elisha was worthy of receiving the level of like these type of prophetic visions, because he was eligible to go with Eliyahu over here, and it split in a way that it would fit him. That in other words, if the split only was like size for one person, it would mean that Elisha was not really supposed to accompany Eliyahu. But because it split wide enough for two people, so that was a sign that it was meant for Elisha to also travel with him. And it also would be significant because the other students would watch this and see Elisha going with Eliyahu. And that would in this miraculous way, traveling across the Yarden, the Jordan, with just splitting the Jordan. Like one of the greatest miracles was Kriyas Yamsuf, and here in the pasuk it just makes it like a very simple thing. Eliyahu just split, he took his mantle and just struck the water and it split, like almost like it's a simple thing. This is like a huge miracle. But anyway, so they both crossed on dry land, and the the next thing that happens is, as they were crossing, so Elisha says, Eliyahu says to Elisha, he says, request anything that you want before I'm taken away from you. And Elisha says that may twice as much as your spirit be mine. So this is a very powerful request, and um, how he even asked for such a thing, very interesting. Now, the the story is that he actually got this. He requested this, and he did receive this. Different sources, midrashim. One place it mentions that Eliyahu had 8 miracles, great miracles, and Elisha made 16 great miracles. So we'll have to go through and count them up, and we'll see. But the other point is that Eliyahu, he revived one person, and Elisha revived 2 people. And there's a difference of opinion as to who these 2 people are that he revives. One of the people that Elisha revives, we're going to see, is the Ben Hashunamis. In chapter 4, we're going to see where he does some type of a CPR almost. He warms the body, he puts himself on top of the body of the child, and he brings him back to life. Now, we had a similar story with the Ben Hatzarfasis, the Ben Hatz from Tzarfat, from Sidon, that there was that Eliyahu had brought back to life. But then there's another story with Elisha where he brings another person back to life, and it's a little unclear what the story is referring to, because there's 2 options. One of the options is that it was a individual that is being buried right after after Elisha died, and he's put in a cave. So they're in the middle of burying someone at some point later, and they hear the enemy coming, and they quickly put the body down near Elisha. And what happens? The body touches Elisha, and this dead body wakes up from touching Elisha. So that would be another revival of the dead story. The problem is that there's 2 opinions as to what happened afterwards. That person, according to one opinion, he was a wicked person. He revived, but then he only revived in order to leave the cave so that he wouldn't be buried near Elisha, and he would end up being buried somewhere else. So he was a wicked person. He was revived, but he ended up dying somewhere else. And it's connected to a story that we had earlier. But the prophet that got Edo to make a mistake and eat when he was not supposed to eat, he was a false prophet. So anyway, so he is so according to that opinion, it's not such a great miracle that Elisha caused him to come back to life, because he ended up dying anyway right afterwards. So according to that opinion, the second case of revival of the dead that Elisha does is when he revives Naaman, who was a officer in the enemy army, and he has leprosy, and Elisha he heals him from his leprosy. And that story is similar to revival of the dead, because the Gemara says that a person who has leprosy is like they died. So when he was revived from the leper, that would be the second story. So again, we're talking about the miracles of Elisha. Elisha had asked for double the prophecy, or double the spirit of Eliyahu, and he does get it. Now, Eliyahu doesn't promise him he's going to get it. He says, listen, you're asking a very, very hard thing. It's a difficult request. This is in verse 10. So you make a very difficult request. And as I mentioned, like, I can't really give you what I don't have. How do I give you double my level? But ultimately, he does get that. And seemingly what Eliyahu is telling him is, it's not really dependent on what I can, on my gift to you. That's really dependent on you, if you're capable of reaching such a level of spirituality. Yes, Mordechai.
Yes, in that period that says on Shona where each verse starts with Lamon, and it refers to somebody great in Tanakh, but it doesn't actually mention their name. For Elisha, there's something in his verse about that. He the one who received twice his master's spirit.
I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear so clearly what you were saying. Could you say that one more time?
Okay. There's a period on Hoshana Rabbah where each verse starts with the word Laman,
Uh-huh.
and then it's regarding somebody great in Tanakh, but it doesn't actually mention their name, but it gives descriptions of them. And for Elisha, one of the things it says, the one who received twice his master's spirit.
Uh-huh. Right, right. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Most people don't, they read through the stuff over there, but it's hard to understand it. It's so poetic. So, Yasha Koyach, that's something we have to remember when we daven on Hoshana Rabbah. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, people should know that this pasuk, Pishnayim Beruchacho. That's a very powerful idea that he asks for double. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mordechai. I'm not sure if anyone did someone want to ask something? Someone else want to say anything? Okay. So here in verse 10, what does Elisha say? So let's read this inside. Let's start over here in verse 10. And what does Eliyahu say? Excuse me. Elisha had asked that he wants double your spirit. And and
My
And verse
question.
10 says, Eliyahu said, you have made a difficult request. If you see me taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if you do not, then it will not happen. So if you see me taken from you, and that will be a sign that you've reached a very high spiritual level, that you see me actually elevating to my ascent to heaven. And if you're able to see that, that will be proof that you are worthy. And I know that Hashem has answered you as you requested. But if you don't see that, that means you're not going to be worthy. That's basically the meaning of this verse.
Rabbi, question.
Yes.
Again, I asked the same question that I asked before.
Okay.
Isn't it chutzpahdik of Elisha to ask something of double his master?
Right. What was he thinking? What was he even thinking? How did he expect to get this? Um, what it seems, I mean, I don't know if it's chutzpah as much as where did he have the courage, like to, but I guess what it boils down to is the fact that nothing is beyond Hashem's ability. Hashem can do anything, and if he can revive one person, he can revive many people. And so Elisha maybe understood that his job is to help the Jewish people, and he understood that very clearly. So maybe based on that, he said, "I understand, Eliyahu, you did your part, tried, but I would like to be able to merit, to be able to do double in that sense." Maybe it's connected to the fact that we do find that Eliyahu seemed to have some, at least according to some commentaries, there was some issue with the way Eliyahu was dealing with Klal Yisrael. His relationship with them was not exactly the way Hashem had wanted it, and so maybe Elisha understood that his job was going to be that his job was to really take it on a whole new, whole new level, double as much as Eliyahu did. He wanted to do. But definitely, it's an interesting, it's an interesting concept that he wants double. I will tell you that first of all, the Radak has another pshat that he wants to be considered the Bechor. He doesn't want to have double what he has. He wants to have a double portion. He wants to be like the firstborn of Eliyahu and get a double portion. So according to that, it's a little more understandable that he's not asking to have double. He's asking to be a firstborn. This is the Radak's father. Excuse me. The Radak brings from his father that my father translated this pshat, this pasuk, to mean that I want pishnayim, similar to the pasuk that talks about pishnayim b'chol asher yimotzi loida. When you have children and inheriting, for the inheritance, the firstborn gets pishnayim, so it uses the same word. So the Radak's father, Yosef Kimchi, learns that it means he's getting a double portion of the Bechor, basically saying that I should be like the prime student of yours, that I'm getting like a double portion of your inheritance. So according to that interpretation, it does have a little. It's easier to understand. There is an explanation of the Malbim that says that because Eliyahu was heading to ascending to heaven, so he's like reaching a much higher level of spirituality, and he felt like Eliyahu would have the ability to give him a unique bracha, with much more than he could have gotten here on earth, which also goes very similar to this other idea, which I haven't seen this as being the source brought, but it's mentioned in Hasidic writings, and I think this might be one of the sources that they bring down over here. A very powerful idea. It's brought in the Drashos Haran. Haran has some like speeches that they've actually translated, if I'm not mistaken, into English. I think ArtScroll has translated. Anyway, in the Drashos Haran, the Ran's speeches, the Ran was one of the early commentaries of the Gemara, similar to Rashi. So he writes down that when you have a close relationship with your teacher, so you're able to benefit in a way that you would never reach on your own. And being that Eliyahu was going up to heaven, and he's going to be unlimited, so to speak, he's not going to be in the regular limitations of a body, physical world. So if Elisha would be able to continue having this relationship, meaning he would have a great desire, a passion for him, even after he leaves this world. So he knew that if he has that, he will be able to benefit from Eliyahu's greatness in heaven. So this is I mention it because it's like a Hasidic idea that it's called hiskashrus, having a connection, which the connection that you have to a tzaddik, it's actually much greater after he passes away. So if you had a relationship with him in his life, when he passes away, you actually have much greater powers, blessings. Your potential is tremendous. And so as a way of answering your question, Ezra, so this idea that he's asking for double, may twice as much as your spirit be mine, he's, according to the way the Ran interprets it, and the way this idea is brought in Hasidic writings. Again, I don't know that they connect it to this specific scenario where Elisha is asking for double, but I think there is a strong connection here, and that is that Elisha felt, I want to still feel connected to you even after you pass away, and I would like to get double as much because after you pass away, I should be able to get double as much, being that I have this strong connection. Anyway, it's brought in Hasidic writing such an idea that after a tzaddik passes away, if you have a connection, or even if you develop a connection after they pass away, you can benefit from that tzaddik's growth in heaven by being connected to that tzaddik, having that relationship. So anyway, bottom line is that Elisha is asking for this huge blessing, and Eliyahu is telling him, I don't know if I can give it to you, but you might benefit. You might be able to get it if you deserve it, and you'll know if you deserve it if you see me going up to heaven. That's now verse 11 says, as they were walking and conversing, behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated between the two of them. And Eliyahu ascended to heaven in the whirlwind. And Elisha was watching and crying out, my father, Israel's chariot and horsemen. And then he saw him no more. So he actually saw him elevating, but at some point it stopped. And he was watching and crying out. Anyway, so and then he saw him no more. He took hold of his garments and rent them into two pieces. And this is the source, as I mentioned earlier, this is the source of tearing kriya when a person's Rebbe passes away. It's a Gemara in Ma'id Katan, talks about mourning. It mentions that when a person's teacher, his main teacher, the teacher who taught him most of his wisdom, when if that person passes away, person is supposed to tear kriya similar to a relative that passes away. And to the extent that it's supposed to be torn into two pieces, which doesn't mean that you tear your garment into two pieces, but it means that even if it would be sewn up, it will never be, you'll never be able to sew it in a way that it looks like it was never torn. In other words, it'll be as if it's two pieces, meaning that it won't be able to be sewn up perfectly. So that would mean like if you tore it on the seam, then maybe you could like sew it back up. But when a person's Rebbe passes away, you can't tear it on the seam. You have to tear it in a way that it would not be at the seam, and and it would be visible that it was torn and never be able to be fixed. Now, the interesting wording over here is, as they were walking and conversing, behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared. So the Gemara, which we learned in the morning class, the Gemara says that you see from here that if someone were to talk, if they would have talked Dvarim B'Telem, if they would have talked just unnecessary words and not Torah topics, so they would have deserved to be consumed by the fiery chariot. So it mentions they were going haloich v'daber. Why does it emphasize that they were talking? It means they were talking Torah words, and because had they not, they would have deserved to be taken to be consumed by the fire. So the Gemara understands this to mean that that even in this scenario where they're Eliyahu is going to be passing away, they're talking words of Torah. And the Gemara there is talking about the story of Joseph, where Joseph and his brothers, where Joseph tells his brothers to head home, don't fight along the way, don't argue about why you sold me. And according to one interpretation, it's don't get too involved in words of Torah, because it's dangerous. You have to concentrate on the road. It's like if you're studying Torah while you're driving, you have to be careful. Nice to listen to a Torah tape, but if you get too engrossed in it, you could, chas v'shalom, could be dangerous. So he was telling them not to get too engrossed in Torah discussion while they're traveling. And the Gemara says, what do you mean? You're supposed to be engrossed in the Torah discussion, because we see from this story of Elisha and Eliyahu that they were walking and conversing. And you see that if they wouldn't, they would have been, that there would be a fire. They could be consumed, chas v'shalom, by a fire. And the Gemara there in Tainus and Daf Yud Amud Beis, the Gemara there says that it's that there's a difference between engrossed in depth and involved just learning it more on a surface level. That on a surface level, you're allowed to travel and learn Torah on a surface level and not to get too deep. But to learn it in depth, that would be dangerous. And anyway, so they were walking and conversing. The Tosfos over there in that Gemara, brings down that there is a concept that you see over there. There is another version, I should say. There's another version in the Medrash that says that they were actually talking Devarim B'Telem. They were talking gossip, and the understanding of that Medrash is that they were talking about not the essence of Torah study. They were talking more about Eliyahu and Elisha. Eliyahu asked him, what do you want? And Elisha answered, I would like to have double as much as your spirit. So they were sort of talking, on a certain level of, Devarim, words that were not exactly Divrei Torah. But the understanding is that had they spoken, you wouldn't call that really Devarim B'Telem, wasted words. It was proper words. It just was not actual Divrei Torah. But had they maybe spoken actual words of wasted words, then Taka, they would have been deserving of the fire that could be consuming them. That would be that's another that's a way of reconciling that other medrash with the Gemara there. In any event, this is the story of Eliyahu traveling with Elisha, and now he goes up to heaven. Now, what does it mean, my father, Israel's chariot and horsemen? So all the commentaries here bring the Targum, the Aramaic interpretation, and that is that what he's saying, father, of course, means Rebbe, my master, my teacher, which is common among among students, that they call their Rebbe their father. But the other part, what does he mean? The chariot of Israel and its horsemen. And according to the interpretation in the Targum, is that it's the tav lahain liyisrael b'tzloisei, that you Rebbe, you master, were so good to the Jewish people with your prayers, more than you did better for the Jews with your prayers, more than the chariots and horsemen could have done. Meaning that they're considering Eliyahu's protection for the Jewish people and his merit while he was alive, that he saved them from many wars and was greater than anything that any chariot or horseman could have accomplished. And so that's what Elisha was saying about Eliyahu, that my father, you're the greatest chariot and horseman, more than any chariot and horseman could have accomplished. And how painful it is that you're leaving. Now, and then he saw him no more, and he tore his garments. Now we're up to verse 13. And verse 13 says, he picked up Eliyahu's mantle, which had fallen from him, and he returned and stood at the bank of the Jordan. So here he's got a little problem, because now he's got to go back. And he's going to have to split the Jordan again. And when it was split the first time, Eliyahu was really splitting it, and or it was Eliyahu together with Elisha, you could say, both of them splitting. It's both merit. And now it's Elisha himself. He's got to come back anyway. So he has this garment, this aderes. This aderes is some type of cloak that Eliyahu wore, and it dropped while Eliyahu was going Eliyahu was going up to heaven, and it was a symbol. Wearing it was a symbol of being a prophet and being a leader, similar to Moshe Rabbeinu's staff. And anyway, so Elisha was to wear this, and the point is that Elisha's given this aderes because he's taking over Eliyahu. He is the one. He is the successor, and he's going to be the prophet of the generation, Navi of the Dar of the generation. And anyway, so here he's stuck here, the other side of the Jordan. So he, in verse 14, he took Eliyahu's mantle, which had fallen from him, and struck the water, and said, he struck the water. Now it didn't split. So he says, and he says, where is Hashem, the God of Eliyahu? And the verse is a little confusing here, at least in the Hebrew, because it says, Afhu, also he. And it says, where is the God of Eliyahu? Also he. And then it says, and he struck the water, and it split apart this way and that way, and Elisha crossed over. So here, Elisha is a little concerned, very concerned, because everyone is watching. If you look in verse 15, it says the prophet's disciples, or these Bnei Hanavim that are in Jericho, from Yericho, they saw him from a distance and said, the spirit of Eliyahu has rested upon Elisha. They came toward him and prostrated themselves to the ground for him. So this actually means that Elisha was being watched. He was being watched from the other side of the Jordan, and he's standing there, and he hit the water, and it didn't split right away. And then he says, where is Hashem, the God of Eliyahu? And then it says in the water split. Now, what does it mean, also he? That's what I got a little stuck over here on verse 14. I mentioned that the Hebrew, it's a little, if you look in the Hebrew, let's read the Hebrew. So he took this cloak, this mantle, and that fell from upon him. And Vayake es hamayim, and he hit the water. Vayoymar, and he said, Aye Hashem Elokei Eliyahu, where's the God of Elijah? Which the commentaries understand that it's, I've been promised that I'm going to get double his level. I'm supposed to get double. Or at least Hashem, please help me. I'm begging you, the God of Eliyahu.
Rabbi, you have to mute. You have to mute the background noise.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me try that. 1 second. What just happened? Does that work? Okay. Oh. 1 second. Okay, I think that's good. So so the pasuk says Hashem. So he says, where is Hashem, the God of Eliyahu? That he's not showing me this he's not showing me that he could that the water is splitting. And then it says, Afhu, also he, which sounds like you could read it together. Also he, Vayake es hamayim. Also he struck the water. Vayechatzu, and then it split. Hena vahena, this way and that way. Vayavor Elisha, and Elisha passed. So one of the interpretations is Eliyahu came back down from heaven and struck the water. Also he means Eliyahu came back down and he struck the water. This is one of the interpretations. Either in a spiritual level, he came down in his spiritual body, or he struck the water. Also he, although there is the other way of learning it is, where is the God of Eliyahu, that Afhu, that the water is staying the way it is. Where is the God of Eliyahu? Afhu, it's still here. It's not changing. The water hasn't staying the way it was. And he hit the water by Yechatzu Hena, so he hit it again, and the water split apart. And Elisha was able to go by.
Rabbi,
There is another point here. Yes, David. Yeah.
there's a psalm from Tehillim. I forget which psalm. It's the one we sing. Afu, na, 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 na. Na 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 na.
Yes. Something. Yeah. Let me pull it up here. Afu Tsuri Vishuasi, that right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Tsuri Vishuasi. Yeah. Samach Beis, 62, verse 3. 62, verse 3. And in the Sepharia here, let's pull it up here. Okay, so 62 verse 3, for the leader of Yedilson, a psalm of David, truly my soul waits quietly for God. My deliverance comes from him. Truly he is my rock and deliverance, my haven. I shall never be shaken. So you're saying that pasuk might refer to the future of, are you sure that that's connected to this, or
No, I'm just
just
saying that hasn't. That's also an afu. I thought maybe there's.
Oh, no, that's Ahu.
Oh,
I
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
sure. I thought maybe
I'm
you
sorry.
had some.
No, I'm
Ahu.
sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Ahu.
Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, it happens. You sometimes hear the similar word, and it's like you make the connection. Okay, so here it's yeah. So he also Ahu Vayakes Hamayim, which as I just said, it might mean that it might mean Eliyahu, also he, or it might mean the water stayed the way it was. Now, there is a concept that Hashem loves the prayers of the righteous. So he didn't listen to them the first time when he hit it, so that he would pray. He would enjoy the prayers of the righteous, and because when they pray, they understand that it's all coming from Hashem, and it brings pleasure to Hashem. Anyway, there is an interpretation of the Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, and it's brought in Rashi over here and in the other commentaries, that this was actually a very great miracle, because the first time around, when Eliyahu split the water, whose merit did the water split in? It split in the merit of Eliyahu and Elisha. And here it splits only from Elisha. Now, this is, of course, learning it in an alternative way, not the way I explained it earlier, but this is, in other words, not translating Afu, meaning Eliyahu also hit the water, assuming that it was just Elisha. And what it's saying is also he, by him just hitting the water, it split. That even though he was only one person, and this is in an interpretation from Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer, that the Tana Rebbe Eliezer, his insights, is expounding on the psukim. So it says that Elisha really got a double portion, because before you needed two prophets. Eliyahu needed Elisha also to split for the water to split. And now Elisha alone was able to split the water. So again, the different interpretations how to translate this Afu, But one of them is that here is a example of where Elisha is doing something that even Eliyahu wasn't able to do. We don't see that he was able to do it because with Eliyahu you had two great tzaddikim, and here you only have Elisha. So here we continue the verse
Rabbi.
15. Yes.
It says over here in the Mamloes, it says in one way, Elisha's request for twice Eliyahu's spirit had already been fulfilled. The fact that it split for him alone, it looks like it was for both of them. That he was praying for his own request and for Eliyahu's spirit to enter him, and that request was fulfilled by splitting for just him alone. Or at least that's the way
exactly.
it looks.
Yeah, exactly
Okay.
the way we just explained it. Okay, so verse 15, the prophet's disciples who were from Jericho saw him from a distance and said, the spirit of Eliyahu has rested upon Elisha. They came toward him and prostrated themselves to the ground before him. And here again, where did they see this? They saw it from Elisha splitting the sea, splitting the Yarden, the Jordan. And they realized that he must be the successor of Eliyahu. So they said to him, behold, among your servants, there are 50 able-bodied men. Let them go and search for your master. Perhaps a spirit of Hashem has carried him off and hurled him onto one of the mountains or one of the valleys. So here the prophets, and the verse ends, but Elisha said, don't send them. So here these 50 prophets, they have for some reason this idea, let's go look for Eliyahu. And all the commentaries are trying to figure out, what do you mean? You're the people who said that Eliyahu's leaving. Why are you now coming up with this idea to go and look for Eliyahu if you're the ones who knew, you're the ones who were the ones who were revealing or announcing that Eliyahu's leaving, and Elisha had to quiet you people down. You knew that he was leaving, and now all of a sudden you're looking, you want to go look for him. Don't you know that he went to heaven? Where do you think, where do you think he went? And Elisha is like, no, don't. So number one, what we see here is that Elisha doesn't want to say that he saw him go up to heaven. So we see about Elisha's humility, that he's just trying to tell them not to go, but he doesn't want to reveal them. I saw him go to heaven. That's so he's not telling them about his own greatness. He's acting in a humble way. And the fact that they see, there seems to be two interpretations that I saw in the commentaries over here, why these prophets are thinking that they are that they should look for Eliyahu. Excuse me. Why are they trying to look for Eliyahu? Number one, when Eliyahu was taken to heaven, they lost their prophecy, and which is really an interesting thing, because it really goes hand in hand with what I was talking about a little earlier, that when the tzaddik was here on the earth, so of course he was the prophet, he was like giving, he was, they were able to benefit from his greatness, but because they weren't so connected to this tzaddik, so when he passed away, they almost like they lost their ability to benefit from this tzaddik. They lost their prophecy to the extent that they even forgot about some of their prophecies from before, or maybe all of their prophecies. They forgot their prophecy that they, and it's not my own insight about them forgetting their prophecy. This is the commentaries over here mention this. Achshav nelam mehem heichanu. Now they forgot where he is, because when Eliyahu was hidden, this is Rashi brings this, the Ruach HaKodesh left them, and they didn't have Ruach HaKodesh. They didn't have a lot of Ruach HaKodesh anymore. Shuv lo haysa Ruach HaKodesh meruba b'Yisrael. There was not a abundance of Ruach HaKodesh anymore amongst Klal Yisrael, and so they almost like they forgot. They had like some type of amnesia, or they had some forgetfulness, that they forgot that they were the ones who were claiming where Eliyahu was going. They forgot that. Now the other interpretation that's the commentaries bring down is that they knew that Eliyahu went to heaven, but or they knew that Hashem was taking him somewhere. But this was not anything new that Eliyahu was going somewhere, because there were other times where Eliyahu was taken to Mount Sinai and he was 40 days, he didn't eat anything. And we had these stories in the past. So they didn't actually know that he's going to heaven. They knew that he's being taken, he's going to be leaving. But they didn't know exactly where he is going. Well, I'm sorry, there's actually a third interpretation. They knew he was going to heaven, but they thought that his body might need still to be buried. That's the third interpretation. They're looking for his body, that maybe it should be buried, and because his soul maybe went to heaven, but not necessarily did his body go to heaven. Of course, it wasn't a common thing that a body would go to heaven. In fact, that's one of the big questions that the commentaries all ask on this chapter is, how could it be that how does the heaven handle a body? You know, it's one thing maybe Moses went up to heaven for 40 days, but how does Elisha live in heaven, so to speak, with a body? So that according to one of the interpretations, they're wondering if they should look and see if maybe his body was put somewhere, and maybe they should go and at least bury it.
This would make a great movie.
Well, yeah, of course, it's how he went to heaven. Okay, anyway, my time is up, so we're going to stop here, but we're up to verse 17. Okay, sei gesund, everyone. Have a, I mentioned